Hello, First to Third podcast family. Thanks for joining us, or me, right now. Just a busy time for all of us going on right now, trying to get together and all of that, but still wanted to hop on here for a quick episode tonight, just to kind of chat about playoffs and fun times and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to get us started here. I might have a couple of the guys join a little later on. We'll kind of just have to see. Like I said, just busy schedules, busy times in lives, and we're normal people just like everybody else. So life just kind of comes and happens that way. But again, wanted to kind of keep content rolling for you, share some thoughts, recap of some series, and of course, best time of year, World Series time is here. World Series starts tomorrow, October the 28th. So really looking forward to the Fall Classic and all the fun and drama that brings, and see kind of where it takes us from there. So again, appreciate you joining tonight. Look forward to chatting a little bit of baseball and interacting. So feel free to drop any comments in there. We'll try to answer some questions, whatever kind of pops up. So I think the first place that we kind of need to jump to is a recap of our predictions for the championship series from each side, American League and National League. Man, it has been tough slaying when it comes to, I think, picks for most of us so far in the playoffs. Barrick currently holds a slim lead with 4 total points in our predictor here. But we'll see. The World Series could quickly shift some of that stuff here in the last series of the season. So just a recap of the championship series predictions. Drew, Barrick, and myself got them in. I think Robbie had some. I haven't gotten them from him yet, so to be determined on his picks there. But Drew had the Phillies topping the Padres in 6 games. The Phillies end up topping the Padres in 5 games. So he got 1 point for that, for getting the Phillies right. And then he had the Astros over the Yankees in 5. Again, close, but he had the Astros, of course, ended up sweeping. We'll get into that a little bit later. So he gets 1 point for that. Barrick also had the Phillies over the Padres in 6, so he gets a point for them. But then he had the Yankees in 7 over the Astros, so no point for him on that one. And then myself had the Padres in 7 over the Phillies, so nothing to show for that one. And then I had the Astros in 6 over the Yankees, so I pick up a point on that prediction. So going into the World Series as it stands now, Drew has 3 total points. Barrick has 4 total points. Robbie has 3 total points, and I have 2. So, like I said, it's been kind of tough sledding here so far in the old playoff predictor, but that's how it goes sometimes. That's why they play the games. That's why baseball's fun. You never know what could happen. So it's always interesting to see when you kind of think through a series and how it might play out and who might step up and win and who's going to come up in that big moment, and then the exact opposite could happen. So it's kind of the beauty of baseball. So before we jump into kind of the recap of the championship series and all of that, I thought it'd be a fun kind of look all the way back to the beginning of the season. I believe it was episode 4 that we put this out of our preseason predictions. We did our picks for who was going to win the division. Then we had our picks for who was going to win the pennant, and then ultimately who was going to win the World Series. And kind of taking a look back at those, I'll say it's pretty interesting to see how the season ended up shaking out and what our predictions were, and who ended up being a flop for the season and who wasn't. So I figured it'd be kind of fun to recap what our preseason predictions for the World Series were. At the time, again, these were just fun preseason picks. These obviously didn't have any money or anything behind them. So Ryan joined in with us on these preseason predictions. So Ryan had the Blue Jays facing off against the Cardinals. Robbie had the Rays facing off against the Braves. I had the White Sox facing off against the Braves. Drew had the White Sox against the Dodgers. Kenny had the Blue Jays against the Dodgers, and then Barrick had the Rays against the Dodgers. So we all kind of joked it was pretty cool. Didn't plan necessarily for it to work out that way, but we did not have a single matching World Series prediction. So we all kind of felt pretty solid that one of us might get it. And even with all of those different mix of matchups and all that kind of stuff, none of us picked the Astros facing off against the Phillies. And then just as predictors, Ryan took the Blue Jays in 6 over the Cardinals. Robbie and I both took the Braves to repeat this season. Robbie had the Braves over the Rays in 6. I had the Braves over the White Sox in 7. Drew had the Dodgers picking up a second World Series in 6 games over the White Sox. Kenny took the Blue Jays over the Dodgers in 7. And then to round it out, Barrick took the Rays over the Dodgers in 6 games. So, again, all of us will not be pulling any type of Trevor Plouffe and and guessing the World Series predictors in the exact game. So I just thought that'd be pretty fun to see. We were all pretty wrong. Not a single one of us had a single team in the World Series, which is pretty crazy. But again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, that's why they play the game. That's what makes baseball so crazy. Again, I had the White Sox in the World Series. They didn't even make the playoffs. Injuries really cost them a lot. They had some managing decisions that kind of probably hindered them just a little bit, but it kind of was what it was. And unfortunately, you gotta deal with what you got at the time. So the Blue Jays had a good season. We had a couple guys pick them. The Rays had a good season, and then pretty standard stuff. Braves, Dodgers. I mean, they both had stellar seasons. Both won 100 games. Cardinals made the playoffs, lost in the wild card series. So that was all that. So again, fun stuff, fascinating. Always fun to take a look back and see how the season kind of came about. So. Anyway, that's enough of the looking back all the way back to the beginning. So let's kind of get into this championship series recap. Again, pretty wild, but the Phillies roll the Padres 4-1. I certainly did not see the Padres kind of not being able to put it together. So to speak, in this series, I really thought that this series was going to be much more competitive than it really shook out to be. But that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. The Phillies are a very hot team. Their offense is really just unmatched right now, to be honest. They're hitting home runs. They're getting guys on base. The bullpen is doing what it needs to do. So games 1 and 2 were in San Diego. The Phillies take game 1, 2-0. But the Padres are able to bounce back and pick up a win to match the series 8-5. To be honest, my prediction for this series, again, I had the Phillies in 6 and truly felt like I had the Padres, Padres in 7. I truly felt like this was a series where the home team was going to win every game. So when the Phillies took game 1, that was pretty shocking to me just in terms of what was happening and what was going on. But then the Padres pick up that game 2, and I'm like, okay, kind of evens everything out. We're going to Philadelphia, all square at 1. Maybe the Padres still won on the road, that kind of stuff. They did not. And unfortunately, the series ends up ending in Philadelphia. So the Phillies go home and take care of business. They beat them 4-2 in game 3, 10-6 in game 4, and then they close the series out on Sunday 4-3. And just the games were, for the most part, very competitive. Both teams kind of showing out and doing what they do best. But in that last game, it was the Philly stars shining bright. Bryce Harper hits a monster 2-run home run in the bottom of the 8th with the Phillies down 3-2 to put them up 4-2 and able to have a chance to go into the 9th and really just close the game 3 outs and go to the World Series. And that's exactly what they did. Really, that's the standout game to me when you kind of look at the series. You can kind of point the finger a little bit here. Kind of, I'd say the biggest talking point of that game in particular is that Harper at bat. Our Harper put up a great at bat and a great battle, so can't take anything away from him when it comes to what he was able to do and put the bat on the ball. But a lot of criticism on the Padres, Bob Melvin, for not having Josh Hader come in and face Bryce. And at that point, which was a potentially, season defining at bat, and one of your best bullpen arms is just, left stranded in the bullpen. Harper hits the home run, and kind of the rest is history. So pretty wild. Last week, Barrick and I chatted about these two series, and the keys that I thought were going to be important, and the keys for the Phillies that I threw out there at the time was the Phillies bullpen had to continue to be consistent and get the outs that they got against the Braves in the DS series, and then the bottom half of their lineup had to produce. The bullpen did exactly what they've been doing. They came out, got consistent outs, got big outs, and got out of jams when they needed to. And then the bottom of that lineup, it wasn't as productive, I would say, as it was in the Braves series in the NLDS, but it was productive enough. But Bryce Harper and Real Muto, Castellanos, Schwarber, the big guys at the top of that lineup really stepped up for the Phillies and put up some great numbers. So kind of just looking at some statistics, Kyle Schwarber hit 400 in the LCS. Bryce Harper hit 400. Real Muto hit 235, but he had a home run, was able to draw 3 walks. So, he was getting on base. Castellanos, just had timely hits, had some good at bats, and put the ball in play. But again, Schwarber, Harper, Schwarber had 3 home runs. Harper had 2. Rhys Hoskins, crazily enough, he hit 222 in the league championship series. He had 4 hits, and all 4 hits were home runs. So that's that's heavy production at its finest. Rhys is come up with some huge highlight moments in the playoffs so far. So again, he ends up hitting 4 home runs with 7 RBIs. Again, all 4 hits being home runs. So he has quite an interesting slash line here. His average for the series was 222 with a 300 on base percentage, but he had a 1.189 OPS, which again on 4 hits, it's pretty remarkable to have over a 1 OPS in the series. Schwarber has a 1.5. He had 3 home runs, 4 RBIs. So just crazy. Harper, again, had the 2 home runs, but he also had 3 doubles to go along with that. He had 8 hits in the series. He was just on base the whole series. I think what's good news for Phillies fans, and I mentioned it too, just he had an unbelievable at-bat in that 5th game, and the last at-bat that he hit the home run. He only struck out 1 time in 20 at-bats. So, again, when Bryce Harper is seeing the ball, is able to put the bat on the ball and be productive and not strike out, he's one of the more fun players to watch in baseball. I don't particularly find myself as a Braves fan, and most of us on this podcast, pulling for the Phillies and obviously, wishing them success. But, I got to say Bryce Harper is a fun guy to watch. He's really talented. It's pretty interesting in my opinion this year. Just with the development of the DH coming to the National League, if we're being honest, probably saved the Phillies season. Bryce Harper struggling with the ligament in his elbow, potentially maybe needing surgery, maybe not, but unable to play the field. And so he's DH'd for pretty much this whole season. Again, if that rule is either delayed until next year or ends up, not even being passed to come to the NL, his season might be done. And who knows what the Philly season looks like at that point. So, again, not taking anything away from them. That's the rule. That's not meant to be a shot. It's fascinating to think about, what could have been in an era where the DH wasn't in the National League. I'm a big fan of the DH coming to the National League. I think it's been great for baseball and will allow opportunities for guys like this, a Harper to still have a season, be productive, put up those numbers, and not just completely miss out on a year of production in his career because the AL is the only league that has the DH. So I think it's good. I think it's beneficial, and super excited to kind of see, what other impacts that rule in and of itself might have going on in the future. On the flip side, one of my keys for the Padres and them kind of getting through to the next round was I thought they had an edge in the bullpen. So I really felt like that the starters really needed to shine for them in this series. And then also that Manny Machado and Juan Soto needed to be the production guys that they had been up until this point. And I got to say, really aside from game 2, there wasn't a whole lot. Soto had some flashes of some moments. He had 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. But he only had 4 hits in the whole series. Same thing, Machado had 5 hits, 2 home runs, 2 RBIs. There wasn't a big standout guy, unlike when you look at the Phillies and their lineup and the roster and what they were able to put out there. They just didn't have anybody that stood out as, this is the guy that's going to carry them to the next season. I would say Brandon Drury is probably the one guy that did have pretty successful series. He had 6 hits in 15 at bats, 1 home run, 5 RBIs. He hit 400. So, but again, when you look at that lineup, you're probably not looking for Brandon Drury to be one of your top production guys. So that kind of fell off a little bit for the Padres, I would say. And then that pitching staff, Blake Snell goes 5 innings, gives up 5 hits and 4 runs. And Yu Darvish ends up starting 2 games in this series. He goes 13 innings. He gives up 7 hits, 4 runs. He took a loss, I believe, in game 1. He didn't pitch terrible, but didn't really get him too late in the game. And then you've got Mike Clevenger, just did not have a good outing at all. Unable to get out of the first inning. He gives up 3 hits, 3 runs, 1 home run, and again, unable to even record an out. So just a tough day for him. And that was, again, one of the keys that I had put out there. The starters needed to go long. They needed to be able to hand it over to that bullpen and let that bullpen do what they've been doing all season. They just were unable to. I think when you, again, look at the strengths of both of these teams, the Phillies' strengths produced more than the Padres' strengths. I already mentioned Soto and Machado and their production, but I mentioned the Padres' bullpen. I think a big circle that you can put, Josh Hader threw 1 inning in this game, and it was the game 2 win, and he picked up the save and had 3 strikeouts. But he pitched 1 time in 5 games. It's tough when you're only – I shouldn't say only – when your best bullpen arm only gets to go toe the mound 1 time. And I think, that's where a lot of that criticism comes from in that game 5, Harper at bat. Hader's pitched 1 inning in the whole series up until that point. You would think his arm would be pretty fresh. You think he would be ready to come in. I certainly understand not bringing him in a save situation or in the 9th, but at that point you have the lead. He is your best arm in that bullpen. Hader has looked pretty unhittable in the lefty-lefty matchup in the playoffs thus far, and he's left in the bullpen. So it's a tough pill to swallow. Obviously, it's easy to look back. Hindsight's always 20/20. Hindsight's always undefeated. But if you're going to go down, I would rather Harper hit the home run off of Hader and go down with your big gun on the hill. So that's kind of how that series shook out. There wasn't much else to it. The Philly stars just shined brighter than the Padres stars. And you got to give kudos where kudos are. Phillies are a hot team right now. They're really putting together offensively, pitching, defensively. Gene Segura had some unbelievable defensive plays in this series. And that was a huge question mark on the Phillies coming into the season. I mean, there were professional analysts out, MLB Network, ESPN, all the big networks and big journalists and all that stuff. This team was not put together to play defense. They were put together to hit home runs and get on base. And, right now the guys are just finding ways to get it done on both sides of the ball. So, again, kudos to them for kind of putting this together and allowing them to get on this run. So it's pretty remarkable. And I got to say too, it is impressive to see Harper doing this. I'm sure he probably felt, a little let down leaving the Nationals and then winning a World Series in 2019, the first year that he's gone. I'm sure he wishes he could have been a part of that and been on that run, but free agency took him elsewhere and he chose to leave, which is fine. But at the same time, I'm sure he knew a lot of guys over there. He would have loved to have been on that run to that World Series, but he sure has taken advantage of this opportunity here with the Phillies, and he's 4 wins away from capturing that World Series title for himself in Philadelphia. So I think you got to give a lot of kudos to him. He's battled through a lot this season, the broken thumb, the elbow, slumps. They fired their manager, and I can only imagine he's been, one of those solid veteran voices in that clubhouse that's just telling the guys, ride the waves. Don't get too high, don't get too low. The cards are going to fall where they're going to fall. Let's get into the dance and let's figure it out from there. And that's pretty much what they did. They were the last team into the playoffs. They got hot, and here they are, 4 wins away from a World Series. So you got to give them the kudos and everything that they got going on. So switching over to the American League, the Astros sweep again. So the Astros took a first round bye for having the best record in the American League, and go into the DS against the Mariners, sweep the Mariners 3-0. Come up against the Yankees. This has been a hotly contested rivalry in the playoffs for a number of years now. The Yankees talking a lot of trash coming into the series. I should say Yankees fans, players I don't think necessarily talking a whole lot, but Yankees fans talking a lot after they beat Cleveland. There were a lot of we want Houston chants, and I think you got to be careful what you ask for, and I think again that shows here. The Astros just absolutely handle the Yankees in 4 games. The Astros having home field advantage, first 2 of the series in Houston. They take the first game 4-2. Justin Verlander picks up the win there. Then they come back in game 2, pick up the win 3-2. Then the series shifts to New York. I think a lot of Yankees fans still felt pretty confident because the pitching kind of lined up for the rest of the series up until that point. So they come back to the Bronx. They've got Garrett Cole on the mound for game 3. Need to take that game and need to be able to kind of shift some momentum in the series, and they're just unable to do so. And the Astros end up blanking the Yankees in New York 5-0. Just a tough scene. And then they come out in game 4 on Sunday, and Nestor Cortez has an okay outing. He was unable to escape some of the jams that he had been able to escape for most of the season. And the Astros end up chasing him and end up taking the series 6-5, or take the game and the series at that point 6-5 in the deciding game 4 there. So, the Astros, they're a polarizing story. A lot of people still hate them for what happened in 2017. A lot of people don't feel like they were punished harshly enough. A lot of people don't think they showed enough remorse. Whatever the case may be, whatever your feelings of that team may be, they're playing really good baseball right now. And their pitching staff is good. Their offense is good. They're just solid. There's not much more you can say. They've got a rookie shortstop in Jeremy Pena, who is just having an unbelievable postseason run right now. He hit .353 in the Yankee series. He had 6 hits, 2 of those doubles, 2 of those home runs. He had 4 RBIs. Dude was just getting on base and being productive when he got up to the plate. Alex Bregman hit 333. He had 5 hits and 1 home run. You know, there wasn't anything that really blew you away when you looked at this kind of numbers, so to speak, for the Astros. Jordan has a pretty mellow series, all things considered. He hit 214, only had 3 hits in the whole series. But they got runners on base and they capitalized on those opportunities, and that's really the name of the game, for the Astros. So again, kudos to them. I think a lot of the focus, not to take away from how good the Astros are, but I think a lot of focus in this series particularly was on the Yankees and how they performed. And, title of this episode, are the Yankees the best, worst team ever? Obviously a little bit of clickbait, but at the same time, it does beg an interesting question. The Yankees on paper looked like a team that should have had the best record in the league. They look like a team that should have probably led the league in home runs. They looked like a team that should have a Cy Young winner in their rotation. And they look like a team that should be in the World Series. And unfortunately, they just didn't have the guys that stepped up at the right time. And, timing in baseball, for lack of the pun or whatever you want to call it, timing in baseball is really everything. And so just tough to watch. Aaron Judge had an unbelievable regular season, almost had a triple crown, AL home run leader, sets the AL record in home runs, led, I think, the league in almost pretty much every category except for the average. Unbelievable season. Tough to see the fans booing him in the playoffs, but I think that is what New York is. They are a World Series or bust fan base. That's what they expect. That's what they've known for most of the fan base. That's what they've known their whole life. I think it is an odd look to boo, the AL MVP after the season that he put up this year. But you can't fault them. I mean, they won a World Series. They're hungry for one. They haven't won a World Series since 2009. They felt cheated from the 2017 season against the Astros, and the team just did not, play up to par. So, again, a little bit of clickbait on the header of this, but if you look at the Yankees season, their record at the end of May 31st, was 34-15. They had the best record in all of baseball by a game over the Dodgers. When you fast forward to July 31st, they sat 69-34. They still had the best record in the American League. And at that point, they were 1 game behind the Dodgers for the best record in all of baseball. When you fast forward after the last 2 months of the season, in those 2 months, August, September, and the first week in August, they go 30-29. They play 500 baseball. They finish the season 99-63, so 1 win shy of 100. They have the second best record in the American League, but they fell to about the 5th or 6th best record in the league. So really coming into the postseason, the Yankees kind of limping. They finished the season in their last 10 games 5-5. They lost their last 2 games of the season. Granted, the games didn't matter a ton. They had kind of locked up their seeding. They had locked up the division. So it kind of was what it was. But at the same time, and I think this was the case with the Braves, and we talked about this with the Braves, even the Braves limped into the postseason. So, it's one of those things where the Yankees did not have a ton of momentum coming into the postseason. They had the first round bye. That's been up for debate whether or not that's been helpful. And I think it truly depends on how was your team going into the postseason. How was your team? When you look at the Astros, they won 106 games. They were 7-3 in their last 10, and they won their last two games. When you look at the two teams that got the bye in the National League, the Braves were 7-3 in their last 10. They lost their last game against the Marlins, but if we're being honest, they didn't really look good in that whole Marlins series. The Dodgers were 6-4 in their last 10. They won their last game of the season, but again, they didn't have much to play for really the last month of the season. They kind of were on cruise control. They were still winning games, but there's a difference when you're kind of in the chase and in the hunt. I think there's a balance. Obviously, the Braves and the Mets just battling to the absolute, basically, last day of the season took a lot out of them. But again, it's just tough. It kind of just is what it is. So anyway, again, a little bit of clickbait there, but I think it's one of those things where you just you got to take it with what it is. The Yankees just did not play very good baseball coming in down the stretch. The Stars just didn't shine. Pitching staff wasn't great. Bullpen a little beat up. It felt like it kind of felt like they didn't know who was going to run out there and take the mound at any given moment. Wandy Peralta was kind of what I saw the most consistent arm they were running out there. I don't know what was exactly going on with Clark Schmidt. Had a decent regular season. It just didn't seem like he was, coming in, too much. Clay Holmes, big arm out of the bullpen. There were just moments it didn't seem like Boone wanted to put him in or trusted to put him. I don't know what the case may be again. And I'm speaking a little out of pocket just because I don't watch every single Yankees game. Obviously, just that's not the focus of our podcast or where we're at. But just it felt like Boone was trying his best to just figure out who was the best option to go out there. And he didn't have the bullpen that he knew, okay, if you get me to the 7th with a lead, these are the guys that I can run out there. These are the guys that I can confidently rely on to go out there and get me these outs that we need to close this game. And that's tough. So you got to figure it out. And the Yankees, unfortunately, were unable to do that. And, I got to say that's a tough way to end a season. League championship series, nothing to hang your hat on, but to get swept, not even win a game, and get shut out in game 3 at home with your ace on the mound. That's a tough way to go out. So that brings us to, really more of the fun conversation. And that is, the World Series matchup. Again, I'm super stoked. I think this is an intriguing matchup. What I'd say is even better from just a pure entertainment and baseball aspect of this World Series. Both teams able to close the series out on Sunday. Both teams able to rest pitching. Both teams able to align their pitching staffs the way that they want to at this point. So you don't have one team that's kind of limping into this playoff round and having to try to figure out what we're doing or where we're going or anything like that. So I think if you are looking for as fair of a World Series from that standpoint, we are primed and ready for this to happen. I think when you look at these teams, they do a lot of the same things well. They have solid bullpens, which is, again, we talked about this last week. It's kind of comical at this point that we're talking about the Phillies bullpen being a strength of theirs, but they have figured it out. Jose Alvarado, Sir Anthony Dominguez, they've moved Eflin into the pen. They just got guys that are coming in, throwing hard, unbelievable movement, hard to read out of the hand, and they're just getting outs. And that's the name of the game when it comes down to it. Obviously, the Astros, solid pitching, really from top to bottom, from the starters all the way down to the bullpen, and then star power. The Phillies obviously have plenty of it, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how that shakes out in this series. So I think for me, the big keys that I would have, and that I think that stick out to me at least when it comes to where this series is going for the Phillies. I think it's simple, and I think taking the old adage, wherever it comes from, I think it's attributed to the military for the most part. The old KISS method: keep it simple, stupid. Their starters got to go out. They got to get them 5-6 innings. Keep them in the ball game. Their stars have to shine. Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, Real Muto. Those guys have to continue at the pace that they're on. They have to continue to come up big in the big moments. They have to continue to drive in runs and be the run producers that they have been in the postseason this far. And I think the bottom of that lineup has to continue to do a good job of setting the table, of getting runners on base, so that those run producers at the top of that lineup are hitting with runners on base, forcing pitchers, to make important pitches and not feel relaxed and comfortable on the mound. So that's the key to me. But I think the bullpen again is really what the Phillies need to have. And if they have a lead going into the 6th and 7th inning, I would say right now that's advantage Phillies. That's just how I feel. That's how the momentum feels right now. So the Phillies came out against the Braves, guns blazing in those first few innings, putting up runs, getting to the bullpen early, and chasing those starters. And I think that's a key. So again, for the Phillies, keep it simple, stupid. They need production from their stars. Their starters need to be good. They don't need to be great, but they need to be good. And the bullpen needs to continue the consistency of getting outs that they've been so far this year. On the Astros side, I say consistency, again, comes down key for them. I think when you match this up, offense, pitching, bullpen, defense, I think the Astros leaps and bounds have the advantage in the starting pitching. I think they have the deepest starting pitching obviously so far in the playoffs, but in this matchup, I think they have the upper hand in the starting pitching. So that is a key to me. They need to have their starters assert the dominance and not allow those Philly hitters to get on hot streaks, to get multiple guys on base and have that dagger of a 3-run home run come up that we saw so prevalent for the Phillies so far in their run here in the postseason. So first key for the Astros, the starters have to assert their dominance in this series. Second, the lineup just has to keep doing what they've been doing, and that is next man up. I think the Astros in this postseason have had one of the best kind of hitting approaches and mentalities when you look at the lineup from top to bottom, and that is get guys on base, and then the guys that hit home runs. So, those contact guys, those high average guys, they need to leverage that. They need to find ways to get on base. Again, put the pressure on the defense, put the pressure on the pitcher to make a pitch with a runner on base, and hopefully he'll make a mistake to one of your big hitters who can find a gap, launch it over the fence, one of those things. So I think when you look at the series, if the Astros starting pitching can control the Phillies offense and the Astros hitters can find ways to keep the line moving, it's going to be tough sledding for the Phillies. But I'm not going to count the Phillies out really at this point because of just the run that they're on. Momentum in baseball, just like with any other sport, is a real thing. And if anything, I think when you look at what the Braves were able to do last year, when you look at what the Dodgers did in the 2020 shortened season, when you look at what the Nationals were able to do in the 2019 season, when guys start believing and you've got superstars on your roster, and then you've got a crowd like Philly has that stadium and that atmosphere right now is almost it has to be unmatched at the moment. And so that's a that's a witch's brew. Yeah, pardon the pun for Halloween right now, but I mean, there's a lot happening, in that pot right now. So I don't think you can by any means count the Phillies out right now. But I think for the Phillies to win this series, that offense has to overpower the Astros starting pitching. That is the key element to the entire World Series to me. So if you had to break it down, that's what I would pay attention to the most in this World Series. Can the Phillies offense match pace with what the Astros starters are capable of? And so we certainly shall see. It will be interesting. I think it's going to be a competitive World Series. I think it's going to be a fun World Series. Again, love them or hate them, the Astros, they've been here. Dusty Baker still trying for that elusive first World Series championship. Houston would love to bring that World Series back home again. So, this team is they've been consistent. Again, like them or love them, they've been consistent. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to be a fun series. I don't think any baseball fan or anyone watching this World Series is going to be disappointed. So, so very much looking forward to it. So, without any further ado, we'll just kind of hop right into kind of the last bit here, and that is our predictions. So, unfortunately, like I said, all of our schedules have been a little chaotic this week, and things happening and things going on. So, unfortunately, weren't able to get all of us together. I've got a few predictions that I'll share, and we'll get locked in. I'll make sure we get any of our other predictions out there and put down in the description box below for you guys to check in on. So with that, we will get into what we got. So Drew has chimed in here, and Drew is taking the Philadelphia Phillies in 5 games. That's tough sledding. So to me, I think Drew is highly counting on that Phillies offense to continue to just be on a roll, because I think that's the only way that the Phillies get it taken down in 5. Drew jokingly did say that he would take the Phillies in 6, but he just can't. He didn't see the Astros losing at home again, so he's taking the Phillies. Winning it at home, and that would be quite a celebration, I will say. So that would be fun to see that happen. Was able to get a little prediction in here from Ryan. Again, this is just all fun. Nothing, no money or obviously anything happening on this. It's just all fun. Ryan is taking the Houston Astros in 6. So he kind of has the opposite, I would say, I'd say mindset, it looks like, on this series. And he's got the Astros atoning for the loss of last year's World Series in 6 games to the Braves. So Ryan taking the Astros in 6. So that leaves for now my pick. We're still waiting on Barrick, Kenny, and Robbie to throw some World Series predictions out there. I've been thinking about this since Sunday, since the World Series was locked in. My baseball heart and the romantic side of me of baseball wants this series so bad to go 7 games, just because there's really nothing like Game 7 of a World Series. The drama of that, every pitch feels like the momentum can swing like a pendulum at any time. It's just so fun when baseball, goes the full distance of how long it can go. You've got so many storylines with Dusty Baker trying to get his first World Series, Bryce Harper trying to get his first World Series. You've got a Phillies interim manager coming in for a fired Joe Girardi, who then gets the full-time gig. So he's trying to win a World Series now, in really his first half of the season as the Phillies coach. The Astros trying to atone for the 2017 scandal and try to win over baseball fans or whoever they're trying to win over. There's just, again, there's storyline after storyline. You could just, go down the list of everything. If you haven't figured out by now, I'm stalling, I think, as long as I can, just because I'm so torn on this pick. I think ultimately, I think the Phillies are just on too much of a hot streak. The offense just feels like it can continue to do what it's doing. And I think I'm going to go with my romantic baseball heart, and I'm going to say the Philadelphia Phillies will beat the Houston Astros in 7 games. It's going to go the distance. It's going to be a dogfight. Every pitch is gonna feel like, the best swing, the best pitch, the best strikeout. It's just going to be nuts. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. I'm hoping for good baseball. I'm hoping for competitive baseball, and we'll see where that can take us. So that's it. We've got Drew taking the Phillies in 5, Ryan taking the Astros in 6. I'm locked in with the Phillies in 7. I'll be sure, again, to update the description box below with Barrett, Kenny, and Robbie. We'll put all of our predictions down there in this episode so that you can see them, and we'll kind of take it from there. So I appreciate everyone joining me tonight and hanging in there. It's been fun. Again, it's the best time of the year, the Fall Classic. Football is now getting into full swing. Baseball playoffs are just unbelievable with the World Series and the drama that brings. It would be obviously amazing if the Braves were in this again. But if the Phillies somehow pull this off, 3 National League East World Series champs in 4 seasons. The Nationals in 2019, the Braves in 21, and then if the Phillies can pull this off, the Phillies in 22. Man, what a story that would be for our division. I think it goes to show that the National League East is one of the toughest divisions in baseball, and has primed to be that way for a very long time. So we'll see if that can happen. I'm pumped. I appreciate you guys joining me again, like I said, and we'll certainly look forward to hanging out with you guys as the World Series continues. As always, if you have anything you'd like to submit into the show, questions, comments, anything you'd like to add, feel free to shoot us an email at first23rdpod@gmail.com, or feel free to just drop a comment down in the comment box below. We love to interact with the community and the fans the best we can. Another way you can interact with us and that we'd love to interact with you is over on our social medias. We're on Instagram, over on Twitter. You can find those links down in the description box as well. And lastly, again, as you hear from everybody, as you're watching a YouTube video, we would greatly appreciate your support by clicking that subscribe button. And if you feel so inclined, that notification bell so that you don't miss any opportunity as we launch new content throughout the rest of this baseball postseason and beyond. So again, for me, it's been a pleasure. It's been fun. And for the guys that couldn't make it, Barrick, Ryan, Robbie, Kenny, and Drew, First Third Podcast. We'll catch you guys soon. Peace.